You've probably had this conversation with friends and family. It goes something like this. What happens to my 401k and other investments if Democrats and Republicans can't come to a compromise over the debt ceiling? U.S. debt is a staggering $31.4 trillion, and debt to GDP is at the highest level since World War II. Unfortunately, rhetoric from both sides of the aisle has shown no sign of letting up. The Iceberg, people, is dead ahead, and if the two sides can't come to terms, the U.S. is looking at another debt downgrade or something far worse. It took close to 100 days to get both sides to come to the table, but the passage of the House bill raising the debt ceiling with conditions forced the president's hand, who has now abandoned his refusal to negotiate. He doesn't like calling it a negotiation, but when the two sides sit in a room and haggle over their positions, guess what? It's a negotiation. And the first rule in a successful negotiation is to keep the principals in the room. With the president off in Japan at the G7 meeting, it remains to be seen if staffers can get this job done. As of Friday evening, both sides were pointing fingers, saying the other side was holding firm on extreme views, refusing to negotiate in good faith. Talks flipped from on to off to back on again like a light switch, and it was unclear as of the weekend exactly when both sides would get back together. The good news is the president is now cutting his trip short, and both sides have expressed optimism that a deal could be had as early as next week. And none too soon, as Secretary of Treasury Janet Yellen has said, government could run out of funds as early as June 1. Most of the projections for what would happen in the event of a default have been pretty frightening. Moody's puts the hit to GDP at around 4%, with 7 million jobs lost. Want a black swan event that could trigger a recession? That's it. Most traders remember the 16% hit to markets as we approach the debt ceiling in 2011. There isn't much consensus on what would happen this time, but the range is somewhere between double-digit declines in stocks to life would end as we know it. The truth rarely lives on the extreme, so even if we meet in the middle, it's an outcome most investors would like to avoid. But what happens if talks go well and Speaker McCarthy and the president do cut a deal? Is the coast clear? Are stocks off to the races, or is the glass still half empty? It's counterintuitive, I know, but a deal, even before the deadline, could actually trigger a sell-off in stocks. Welcome to The Money Runner. I'm David Nelson. It sounds Looney Tunes, I know. I'm telling you, good news is bad and bad is good. Let's go back to the start. How did we even end up with the debt limit? The Democratic case is the following. Congress passed legislation to spend the money. Why should we have to raise the limit on the credit card every time we bump up against the ceiling? They claim it should be automatic. History gives us some answers. Its origins go all the way back to World War I. Costs for the war were starting to balloon. We all knew we were going to have to come up with the money for the war, but Congress wanted a say in the process. It was really meant to be a speed bump. Force the vehicle to slow down, look at the landscape before you up the limit. It's been that way ever since. Congress has raised the debt limit 90 times, 78, just since 1960. Oh, and by the way, it's never been lowered. I think most traders understand there's going to be a deal. But no one really likes to know how the sausage is made. Treasury has what is known as the general account. It's kind of like your checking account. You use it to pay bills, and so do they. It's been running down all year. The account gets a bump when tax receipts come in, but is now running out of money fast. Yellen is going to have to make some hard choices. Who gets paid first? Debt holders? If those interest payments aren't made, a default is triggered. What about Social Security benefits? The Wall Street Journal reports that it is possible there could be reduced benefits or delays in sending out checks. The last thing Washington needs is retirees marching towards the Capitol in wheelchairs or pushing walkers. Trust me, it's not going to play well on the 6 o'clock news. The typical balance of the general account is usually somewhere around $1 trillion, and of course goes up and down as funds come in and out. Tax receipts, proceeds from the issuance of debt, and other revenue all go into the account to keep Secretary of Treasury Yellen from writing bad checks. Given the U.S. runs a large deficit, Treasury is running out of funds fast. Tax receipts and other revenue are still trickling in, so the June 1st drop-dead date, also known as the X date, could get a reprieve. But either way, we're going to hit the wall and hit it soon. If a natural disaster or some other event hit near that time, the outcome could be catastrophic. So how could a deal still hurt stocks? When your car runs low on gas, what do? You pull into the nearest gas station and fill the tank. That's exactly what Treasury will do. As soon as a deal is signed, Treasury is going to want to fill up their account so they can start paying bills. And the quickest way to do that is to issue debt. That, in turn, will pull funds from the system into T-bills and other debt instruments, some of which might have found its way into the stock market. In a recent research note, JP Morgan expects Treasury to issue enough debt to get the U.S. Treasury account, or TGA, back up to $600 to $700 billion. Not the end of the world, and eventually markets will come into balance. We also have to recognize the fact that, like it or not, austerity means reduced spending, and that in itself will weigh on economic activity. The Republican starting point is laid out in the House bill that passed by the slimmest of margins, 217 to 215. Some of the key sections in the bill are the following. In exchange for a $1.5 trillion hike in the limit, spending levels will be rolled back, and some of the president's signature programs like student loan debt relief and an additional $71 billion to the IRS would be rescinded. Work requirements for able-bodied adults under 50 to continue receiving food stamps and other assistance, that was another key point. Look, I fully support some of these rollbacks. Student loan debt relief was an insult to the millions of students and their parents who paid off their loans. What did they get? What about the millions who chose to go into the workforce and didn't get to go to college? Having said that, I'm also a realist. I understand that in negotiations, neither side gets completely what it wants, and that some of these rollbacks, while in the long run are good for the nation, could cause some short-term pain for stocks as less money is sloshing around the system. The wild card is Donald Trump. Like it or not, the former president is leading in the polls and therefore the de facto leader of the Republican Party. He's already said, let the U.S. default. Hard to know when Trump is for real and stating preferred policy or just shaking up the opposition. He gave that away in his book, The Art of the Deal. Go for a big ask. It will give you more room to negotiate and ultimately end up with a better deal. Democrats, they've got their wild card too. Biden could invoke the 14th Amendment. He would likely point to Section 4 in the language that speaks to the validity of the debt. In other words, just ignore the debt limit, keep writing checks, and go on with business as usual. It would, of course, go all the way to the Supreme Court. And I'm not a constitutional scholar, but I suspect we'd be right back where we are right now. This is late-breaking news. Speaker McCarthy put out a statement this weekend that he doesn't see any progress being made until the president returns home. That's code for talks aren't going well. The coming week is going to be all about the spin. You can bet both sides will be shaping the story, to play to their base. The mainstream media, like always, they'll be pumping up the volume, adding to the chaos. Buckle up, kids. Coney Island has nothing on this roller coaster. If you like this pod, we hope you'll hit subscribe. And if you'd like to sign up for updates and become part of the Money Runner family, check out our new site, themoneyrunner.us. It's up there on your screen. There's even a tool where you can record yourself asking a question and be in our next podcast. As always, thanks for watching. I'm David Nelson.